So we had 3 children then, but I spent 5 years down there. I mean, the other place we used to go to we had interesting trips on 51 Squadron. We used to go to Sharjah quite regularly and fly over Iran. But Iran in those days was ruled by the Shah, and he was very sort of pro-Western. And we'd fly mainly up the border of Iraq or up the border of Afghanistan, because although the Russians were no longer in Afghanistan, a lot of that they'd left a lot of their radars there, and we just wanted to make sure to check whether the Afghanis were using them or not.
Were they using them wrong? No.
No, they didn't have the know-how. No. When the Russians were there, the Russians operated them.
Yeah.
The Iraqis had Russian radars, and they had been trained to use them, so we'd get the odd Iraqi one, but not a lot. But whilst I was on 51 as well, we did the last trip ever in the Black Sea, because that was the Russian pond. That was the Black Sea. It's where the Russian fleet was based in the Crimea, which is well in the news at the moment. And but the Crimea was also one of the other main testing grounds for new Russian radars. There was the one in Novozemla, which was north of Archangel, and they had the other testing ground in the Black Sea. And there again, we were always intercepted in the Black Sea. We were, and we did the last trip ever in the Black Sea, because we flew into the Black Sea, went along, and normally all our contacts would be on that side, because Turkey was on our port side and we were flying parallel to the Turkish coast. So everything was on the starboard side. But this one trip, suddenly we were picking up things on the port side, which meant there were Russian ships on the Turkish side of us. And it wasn't long before we were intercepted by 3 Fiddlers, which were the Russians' latest fighter. They also had the latest Russian radar on, which we probably recorded and got the best recordings ever on. But they started to try and box us. Now, we always carried interpreters with us, Russian interpreters on the aircraft with us, and the Soviets have a system of control whereby everything they do is controlled. No Russian pilot is allowed to work autonomously. His orders come from his ground control, but the orders to the ground control come from the central control, which is in Moscow. So our interpreters were listening to the messages going backwards and forwards. They had an air control ship which was talking to the ground control on the shore, which was then talking to the main control.
Oh, so you picked up both signals then? So
we were picking all the chat that was going backwards and forwards. And this Soviet ship had reported that we were there, and the GCI station on the coast had reported back to his headquarters, and back had come the message from his headquarters that they were to force us to follow them to the nearest Soviet airfield. So that came back, and then that came back to the ground, and our interpreters picked it up, and our captain said, "We ain't not doing that." And then it came from the ship to the aircraft, but by then we had started a gentle weave we had, and these aircraft, the Fiddlers, were trying to sort of stay with us within our gentle weave, and our pilot just said, stand by for some vicious manoeuvres, and the next thing he just popped the air brakes, shut the power and put the aircraft in a left-hand diving turn, which took the Russians by surprise, and we headed straight for the Turkish coast. A couple of the fiddlers tried to follow us down, but by then we were getting very close to the 12-mile limit on Turkey, and the air control ship called the fiddlers off. But they were trying to make us go with them, so we flew back then, and that was the last trip 51 Squadron ever did in the Black Sea. After that they used to go to Tehran and then fly up the Caspian Sea, but that was never as productive. The Black Sea was much better. Where else did we go on 51? We had another interesting trip. In 1963, we were posted from Watton. The whole squadron was posted en masse to RAF Witten. RAF Witten became the central reconnaissance station for the RAF, so we were posted to Witten. We then came under Bomber Command, and I think we moved there in the May, or no, we moved there in the April. In the May, all our tasking came from GCHQ, it did. So we were tasked then to go out to fly around Borneo. So we flew out to Singapore, and then from Singapore across to Labuan in North Borneo, stayed there, and from North Borneo then we did trips down to Darwin in Australia, and from Darwin in Australia on the southern side of Borneo back up to Singapore. We did several of those trips out there, and then came back to Witten, and we were tasked to do the same thing again in, I think it was December 53. But this time we went out to Singapore, from Singapore down to Darwin, but then we flew from Darwin to Cocos Islands in the Indian Ocean, and we stayed at Cocos Islands for 5 days, and we flew from there against Indonesia.
That was a big old trip. It was a big old trip.
Yeah, we were away for about 3 weeks each time. But I mean, all our trips going to Cyprus were sort of, we would be home for a month, and during that month you would do a 3-day trip to Bodo up in North. That was the aircraft that was home, but whilst that one was home, another one was out in Cyprus, doing 3 weeks out in Cyprus or Sharjah. And as I say, we did the 2 trips out to Australia as well. Yeah. But it was a nice squadron to be on, 51. And at the end of 5 years, my 5-year tour was up. I was posted from there then to the Radar Research Flying Unit at Pershore, and we worked closely with the Radar Research Establishment at Malvern. We used to go across to Malvern, the boffins there were bringing up, developing new radars. We'd spend a week with the boffins there, learning about the new radar. That would be fitted to one of the aircraft we had at Pershore, and then we would fly it and test it. And occasionally, dependent, we had a mixture of aeroplanes at Pershore. We had Varsities, Viscounts, Hastings, we had the only Hermes that was still flying in the RAF there. But these equipment were fitted, and we had cameras, of course, and sometimes the boffin would fly with us, but more often than not it was left up to us. They would teach us. We'd go to Malvern for a week. They would teach us about the equipment and what they were expecting, and then we would write reports on it and check it from there. But I was only there for 18 months. Mind, in that 18 months, number 4 child arrived. He did, Gareth arrived then. He was our mistake. He came 7 years after Gillian. But I was there, I'd been there 18 months, and I was called into the office and asked, did I think that I could move with my family in 10 days to Cyprus. If I moved, I would get accelerated promotion up to master aircrew, which is the same as warrant officer, except you get flying pay. I would get accelerated promotion, and it was to go into the joint intelligence staff. It would be a 3-year ground tour in Cyprus. So by then, of course, I'd lost my parents, my wife had lost her parents, and we said, yep, we can move. Professional gypsies, us. We are. It didn't take us long to pack at all. And we went to Cyprus for 3 years. And that was a lovely 3 years, that was. But there it was, I never flew at all. I was on the ground working in an office with the joint intelligence staff.
Was it troubles there then, in Cyprus then?
It was towards the end of the troubles. Yeah, every so often you'd hear a bomb go off in the local town Limassol, but they used to do that. It was normally in an empty house, but they did that so that they could keep the UN there, because the UN paid them a lot of money. So they kept the UN.
Madness, really.
Yeah, oh, method in their madness, yes. But it was a lovely 3-year tour, that was. Yes.
Yeah.
Beautiful sunshine. And whilst I was out there, I got 3 special recommendations for commissioning. And when I came back to this country, I went to the before the board and was recommended for commissioning, but I couldn't go in a flying capacity. I had to go as an air traffic controller. So I was commissioned in the air traffic control branch, and went and did OPTU and came out as a flying officer from there, and then started another career, another 14 years then as an air traffic controller. And where did I go first? I was posted to Binbrook first, which was a Lightning aircraft. That was interesting. And from there then I went and did the it was called the area radar course, but it meant you went to a military air traffic control radar unit. And I was posted then down to Aberporth, which at that time was Western Radar, as far as we were concerned. That was Western Radar, but that was in the process of closing, really. I mean, you used to fight for the 1 track a day there. And I was posted then to the London Air Traffic Control Centre at West Drayton, and I spent 5 years there in the military control room there. And there we controlled aircraft over the whole country, because eventually we took over Northern Radar's commitment as well. So we controlled everything from sort of the south coast up to the Scottish border.
Yeah, you done talk to us before about that. It's like juggling a load of balls and then someone hand you another load. Well, you still got them in the ear as well.
Mm.
So it's
And after 5 years there, I was posted up to Wittering, which would be Harriers. And from Wittering we went to, well, it was getting, by then it was getting towards the end of my sort of time in the Air Force. So my wife had said to me, where are we going to live when you come out of the Air Force? Because neither of us had parents or anything. And I said, well, we'll go back to Pembroke Dock, I think, because the wife still had a couple of relations down this area. So I applied for a last tour at Broady, and managed to get posted to Broady. So I spent then, what, 3.5 years at Broady before I left the Air Force.
Did you like it over there? Did you like it over there?
At Broady? Yes, yeah, it's an interesting place. It's the only place with 40 knot fog.
Yeah.
It is.
And where did you live then? And where did you live over there?
We lived in quarters initially in Haverfordwest,
Yes.
in Trafalgar Road, in Haverfordwest. But the RAF still had quarters over in this side of the water. And as my wife's sort of relatives were this side of the water, I asked if I could have a quarter in Buttermilk Close. And they said, yes, you know, no reason why not at all. So we moved up into Buttermilk Close.
I
And lived there.
used to play up there when I was a kid at Buttermilk Close. I used to play up there when I was a kid up at Buttermilk Close.
Yeah, but we lived up there, number 6, right on the corner in Buttermilk Close. And whilst we were there, we decided that we were going to stay in Pembroke Dock. So we bought a house in North Street, and when I left the Air Force, we moved into North Street. And I've been there ever since. Not in North Street, but
No.
been in Pembroke Dock ever since.
I got to say thank you, Ron, for doing that. That was really good. I enjoyed that very much.